Hey, Jeff, if you can hear me, will you just say hi? I don't know if I have audio.
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm
Through
not
the chair,
hearing you.
you're
I'm not
live
sure
on
what's going
HCAM
on.
TV.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
You play with it a little bit.
Okay, we'll
Oh,
call
I
the
got a thought.
meeting.
What might be going on?
We'll call the meeting to order. Good evening. This is the September 14th open meeting of the Hopkinton Conservation Commission, which is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's amended bill of June 15th, 2021, due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. To mitigate the transmission of the virus, we're complying with the amended bill that suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the commission is convening by Zoom map as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is also being broadcast live and recorded by HCAM. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast by voice or video may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided to the members of the commission for this meeting are available on the town's website. After commission members have discussed each project application on the agenda, the chair will then open the discussion to public comment. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their name and address. 3 minutes will be afforded for each public comment. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote of the commission members. At this time, I'd like to do a roll call attendance for tonight's meeting by the members. Melissa Ricos.
Here.
Carrie Reed. I don't think Carrie joined us yet. Janine LeBlanc. Ted Barker Hook.
Through the chair.
Yes, Kim.
I just got a message from Ted. He's not hearing any sound. He said he's gonna sign off, restart, and try to connect again.
Okay, thank you. Ed Harrow.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, Jim will not be joining us tonight. Janine, you're with us, correct?
Here, yes.
Okay, so we have a quorum at this point. Carrie and Ted should be joining us shortly. We'll do a roll call vote of commission staff. Kim Sierra McCauley,
Present.
Anna Rogers,
Present.
and Matt Verrill from Luke.
Present.
All right. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you. So let's jump right into the agenda. Looks like we have a short one for tonight. No documents for review tonight, correct, Kim?
That is correct. We had a 3-week break between the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, FBC Fox Hollow LLC. This is 5 Fox Hollow Road, a request for minor modification. It's a continuation. And I think that they are looking to install the medallions at the property for the PIB. Do we have the applicant on the call?
Yeah, Jeff, I'm not sure that the applicant's representative was planning to attend tonight.
Okay,
I think the message was just that the applicant preferred to install the medallions, and that was kind of the decision on their end.
okay. All right, yeah, I don't see Mr. Diaz on the call here. Okay, so I think that's consistent with how we have asked applicants to install PIBs in the past. We give them a choice, they can do the medallions, stone wall, fence, etc. I think for this application and the next one, the question was contemplating whether there could be a redundant and a PIB put in place, but we thought that at our last meeting that we thought that that was not consistent with previous commission practices. So I think the medallions are fine. Are there any questions or comments from commission members on that?
Jeff, is that, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Proposed conservation marker, is that understood to be PIB? Or, you know what I mean? Are those two, are they synonyms?
I think
For the
so.
purposes
Kim,
of,
is that correct?
Yeah, I think for the purposes of this plan, that's what he's referring to.
okay, I just want to, whatever, be clear on that for future reference.
Through the chair, this is Ed. What do the medallions go on to?
I believe the applicant is proposing to affix them to trees.
Okay. All right, I think this is pretty straightforward. Again, it's consistent with previous practices by the commission. Kim, I'm just wondering, to Melissa's point, if we should just ask him to, rather than call it conservation marker, just relabel that as a PIB on the plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly have him relabel before we issue any kind of
That'd be
findings
helpful.
on that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, comments, questions from the audience? All right, and this is a minor modification, so we don't need to vote on it unless Kim thinks we should.
No, I would think that would be unnecessary.
Okay, all right. So moving along to 3 Fox Hollow Road, same situation with this one. So again, if we can just request the plan be updated with the PIB, and then I think we are good to go. But let me open it up to the other commission members for comments, questions. Okay, comments, questions from the public. All right. I think we're good. Okay, Wall Street Development, 0 Leonard Street. This is a violation discussion. Good evening, Mr. Petrosi.
Hello.
Okay, so you received the enforcement order from the commission.
Correct.
Okay. And it's my understanding that efforts have been made at the site in the past few days or week where the site is in the process of getting stabilized. The erosion controls have been repaired. You want to give us an overview of what activity you've performed at the site?
Well, essentially, sure. Essentially, what we're fighting the battle that probably everybody is fighting these days with these rainstorms that we're having in stormwater, and while we're also trying to construct stormwater management facilities on the site. So we ran into the dilemma of, the first dilemma was basically dewatering the proposed detention area and also trying to find a suitable alternative to dewater the wetland area, which was accumulating all of this water and holding it back because we don't have the culvert in. So I was informed by by Ken that where I was dewatering was not permitted, and also the way we were dewatering without a sediment basin at the outlet or discharge of the pump was not in compliance with the SWIP or your regulation.
Is there any pumps involved here?
So in any event, we terminated any pumping on the site until we could discuss the remedy. So in the interim, what we've decided to do is allow the wetland to drain naturally through a dewatering trench that we've established across the two driveways in approximately the same location that the culvert would go in. And that's allowed us to significantly reduce the volume of water that has been accumulated in the wetland area, and essentially water is now sitting in our detention basin, which is essentially how it's supposed to work when it's completed in any event. So the question for us is how to dewater the detention basin so that we can complete it and simultaneously install the culvert so that everything works the way it's supposed to work. So in reading the condition that is in the order, I know it's a standard condition that you have regarding the proximity of where the water can be conveyed to, which is 25 feet outside of a resource area. What I wasn't taking into account was that under the bylaw, the buffer zone is considered a resource area, because where the location where we were pumping the watering to was, 70 or so feet away from the wetland. And also it was outside the limit of work area that's been marked out by the erosion control, the sediment and erosion controls. So it makes a difficult scenario for us to find a spot where we can dewater and still comply with that condition and accomplish the goal of getting rid of the water from both the wetland and ultimately the detention basin. So I've asked, even though we've identified an area that might work, and I've shown photographs of the proposed basin that we've proposing to discharge the water to, that's within the limit of work. Well, I'm not very confident on how that will work until we actually try it out and see if the water actually flows beyond in the direction that we want it to flow. Kim has suggested that we find an area up gradient of that location, which he identified on a plan for me, but it doesn't make sense to pump it uphill only for it to drain back down into the area where we're pumping from. Just doesn't make sense. So I've asked in my email to request from the commission the ability to discharge the water beyond the limit of work, or we could move the limit of work approximately 25 feet to the west, and then we'd have plenty of room to discharge the water and have it flow in the direction that it's supposed to flow. In fact, the way this basin was designed with the spreader outlet there, it's supposed to flow in that direction anyways. When the basin is complete, this water will be flowing in that direction past the limit of work, and that's its natural course. So it's really up to the commission how they want to handle this. I mean, we're going to try our best to make it work within the parameters that have been established in the order on that condition 53. But I mean, you folks know the site. It's almost substantially in the resource area. If you consider the buffer zone to be the resource area, it's almost entirely within the resource area. So it makes it very difficult to comply with that. But I've asked in my email that the commission consider allowing us to discharge, perhaps 75 feet away from any nearest wetland boundary. So,
So
That's-
is that on your property, the 75?
yeah, it's still on my property, yes.
Okay,
You can see that where I have that area, that little triangular or trapezoidal piece of property there, that's my property. And what I have highlighted there is where we were pumping originally too. The biggest hurdle that we had at that time was that I did not provide the sedimentation barriers around where we were discharging it so that it would settle out a little bit more. But was working. But every time we got it to a point where we could work, we got a rainstorm. So it's like, and we're supposed to get more rain tomorrow and the next day. So it's just an uphill battle. But I think what we've done is we've got an opportunity now where we have the wetland going to be drained on a continuous basis, so that it won't be holding any more water. We're going to install the outlet structure. Before we were trying to work backwards from the detention basin back to the outlet structure. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to put the outlet structure in and then work down towards the detention basin and grade it out that way. It's not the conventional way to do it, but it's probably more practical at this point, given what we've had to experience. And so that's a positive step in the right direction to get that. I know the commission was concerned about the stressing of the vegetation, and I consider that to be a top priority. So I think I wasn't out there today, but I think the water is significantly reduced, and if we are successful without any significant rain, that thing will be back to normal. And then we can then deal with the replacement of the erosion control in that area where the water is just, was topping over or filtering out through the siltation fence and undermining.
so if I can just interrupt
Sure.
quickly, please. And why can't the erosion controls be fixed?
In this particular area, there was still standing water when the guys were out there the other day. They were there on Monday. So I told them that what we did do on Monday was we stapled all the erosion controls. We established or replaced and repaired the erosion control around the detention basin that had not functioned. But this area here, as you can see, it was still standing water when I took these photographs. And I'm not sure how much I had to do a little bit of improvisation on the check dams that we have in the trench to allow more water to drain out. But once we were ready to loom that side slope and we wanted to put new erosion control in place, but then we got those torrential downpours and the volume of water that's really coming off of Box Mill Lane is really kind of something that was totally unexpected, given all the rainfall that we've had. But once that water, if the water is drained out, we'll replace that erosion control as soon as it's possible to, make it work. Unless
We're supposed to be getting rain here in
I
the
know.
coming days, and the erosion controls aren't fixed.
Yeah.
So they can't control the erosion if they're not installed properly.
Yeah. So the one thing that I can offer, I can offer to put erosion control a little bit further back than what was originally staked out as the limit of work, and put it on the dry area, if that's okay with the commission. I'm more than happy to do it. It'll make my life a lot easier, but this was the area where it was originally installed and staked out on the plan. And we were ready, again, we were trying to get it stabilized with looming and seeding, and then we were overwhelmed with all this rain that we received. But if you would like, I'm more than happy to install, mid-slope around the outside of that erosion control with a silt fence of some sort. And then when we get that culvert in and everything's dried up a bit, we'll replace the silt sock. And hopefully at that point, things will be stabilized and grass will be growing and we'll be in better shape. But the problem was that we didn't have a way to get rid of the water that was accumulating in there. And, you know, we didn't know what, we were like dumbfounded on what to do. Every time we pumped, we got more rain. We opened it up, we pumped out, got more rain. So
Are you working with Garden Consulting on coming up with a plan for,
oh yeah, they've been out there regularly. I've talked to Mark Arnold. He's been involved in the discussion. You know,
so what are they?
I don't think he understood. You know, we didn't realize that pumping to outside the limit of work was a problem. That was our biggest, you know, oversight. Let's say that I thought that I could pump outside the limit of work, and I don't know where it says that I can't, but I'm told that I can't. So
I think you need to read the order conditions, Mr. Petrosi.
okay, well,
And
fair enough.
violation letter. So that'd be step one.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I appreciate you, you know, trying to work with the commission on coming up with solutions, but, you know, again, I think at a previous meeting, you know, we had said that it's not our, you know, position or obligation or job to figure out how to, you know, for you, how to manage your site. I mean, you got to work with your consultant on that and then get the site stabilized, you know, run what the proposed solutions are by Kim. And she can let you know whether she thinks that they're reasonable or not. You know, it's not, again, it's not the commission or Kim's position to provide the solutions for you. I mean, you have to come up with that. And, you know, the erosion controls are still not repaired, which concerns me. We're getting more rain, which concerns me because the site's not stabilized. And, you know, I don't like to beat a dead horse because we've been over this a number of times now. But, you know, the culvert's not installed. The site's been sitting there dormant for 4 or 5 months. So I guess, you know, what's the construction schedule for the road work and the culvert? Can you provide that to us?
Well, yeah, I can. I mean, we're intending on putting the culvert, we've had the culvert on site now for about 3 or 4 weeks. We're waiting for the opportunity to do that. But as I mentioned, the dewatering system that we were, you know, alternatives that we were thinking in our mind that were working weren't really working. And so, as I said, we're going to start working on the culvert first and then work our way down towards the detention basin and complete the detention basin, assuming that we can get the water out of there. I mean, we can't build a detention basin with water in there. I'm sorry, you know, it's just not possible to do that. And loom it and seed it with 6 inches of standing water. So, so that part of it, we're ready. You know, the other part of it is that we're waiting for the sewer and water modification before I can bring, you know, a crew of guys there to do that work. So I'm kind of like caught in the middle. Everybody's busy. The site hasn't really been sitting dormant per se for 4 or 5 months. We built the road. We got.
Well, it was cleared. I'll give you that.
Yeah, no,
we put the road in.
And you know, it was, you know, I'm not going to make excuses for me because I'm not a big excuse guy. But, you know, it's been a challenge, no question about it. But obviously it was complicated more so. This is supposed to be a dry time of the year. And, it's, you know, it hasn't been that way. So, so we're going to, you know, we're going to do the best we can. If the like I said, if you would like the erosion control around the wetland area to be reinstalled at a higher elevation than where it is today, I'm more than happy to do that. But it's outside the, you know, it's more inside the limit of work.
Yeah, I
And-
I don't think we want the erosion controls pushed farther outside the
Okay.
limit of work.
So
Okay,
if I'm successful with the wetland being dewatered to a dry time, we're ready to go in and put the silt sacks back in and everything that we just did on the end of the detention basin. We're more than happy to do that as soon as it's, makes sense to do it.
okay, all right. got
Through the
it.
chair,
Yes, Matt, go ahead.
I think there might be a little bit of miscommunication here. I think, Mr. Petrosi, you're proposing to put the erosion controls interior to the site of where they currently exist. Is that correct?
Correct, up gradient of the wetland.
Yeah, so it would be, closer to within where the work area would be, which I think is perfectly appropriate. And in all honesty, I don't know that he would need to ask permission for that because he's actually, at least temporarily, shrinking the size of his work zone. And,
Okay.
that's sort of a proactive step that should just have been taken, to protect the wetland resources if the existing controls are not functioning, which appears to be the case. So I just wanted to jump in and make sure that there wasn't just a miscommunication there. In my opinion, if he wants to put 10 rows of hay bales inside that limit of work in the area that's already disturbed, he's well within his rights to do that, and his consultant should be making those recommendations to him.
Yep, so I apologize. That was my misunderstanding. So yes, if you're moving the erosion controls interior, that's fine. So I apologize.
Okay.
All right. So,
Like I said, I'm happy to do that, and I will contact S&M to do that work, and hopefully the rain will not be so substantial that we can do that. But even up until recently, that area there where I'm proposing to put this additional erosion control, up until recently, that area was filled with water. And only works when we can dewater that wetland and get the water out of there and moving down towards the detention basin.
okay, all right, I think we got it.
Okay.
Thank you for the update. So you don't have a schedule for the culvert in the driveway? You're
Oh, no,
gonna do it?
I do have a schedule for the culvert, and I've been told that, next week that the guys will be freed up to put that culvert in, the head wall and the pipe across the driveway. And then depending on conditions, we'd like to pump the water out of that detention basin and do that. And I'm just hoping that we can find a suitable location
Through the chair,
that works.
Yes, go ahead, Kim.
I just wanted to point out that the enforcement that was sent that I'm asking the commission to ratify tonight requires that the site drainage work be completed no later than November 1st, 2021. And I think, the message to the applicant is that the site has been open since late February. And so if there were no conditions between February and now, which lended themselves to construction of that stormwater infrastructure, then perhaps Mr. Petrosi, in contemplation with Goddard, will have to create site conditions that are favorable for the excavation of the stormwater infrastructure, which may mean that he may need to consider some on-site temporary detention to hold some of that water and release it slowly in compliance with the SWIP to facilitate the construction.
And Mr. Chairman, I agree with Kim wholeheartedly. The only issue is that is, the water is going into the low area on the site. That's where we knew all along that was where the water was going in that direction. And we do have temporary other basins within the site which are taking water away from and holding water back. So I'm fairly confident that the November 1st date would be fine. I mean, I'm hoping to get it done like next week, like I said, and if we can, of course, your enforcement order says no more work, so I don't know whether or not that works with us, but perfectly, want to work with the commission and reestablish all of these erosion controls. I've been out there every day when it rains. I mean, it's just tremendous amounts of water. So,
Which we knew when we were going through the
Yeah.
permitting process, right? So,
and I just want to address one comment that Kim had mentioned, that one of the neighbors had complained or made a observation that they were getting water onto their property. And, quite frankly, I mean, if you can all imagine if this water was not held back, how much water would be in their backyards today. So, I
okay.
think we did that.
Right.
So anyways,
Okay, so just a couple of quick points and I'll open up to comments from the other commission members. So, the site's still out of compliance with the SWIP and the order conditions. And, you need to work with your consultant to come up with a solution. And when you've done that, you can run it by Kim. Okay,
okay, what about ceasing work? No more work on the site.
you can do work to stabilize the site.
Through
So,
the chair,
Yes, Kim, go ahead.
this is a unique order in that it actually does not cease and desist any work at the site. It asks for dewatering activities in violation of the order to cease. So work that's in compliance with the order can continue. And in fact, I think it's certainly my opinion. I'm not sure if the commission would agree, but it's certainly my opinion that completing this stormwater infrastructure would be an improvement on the site at this point. So we want you to
okay.
feel like you can move forward.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that because, I've been waiting for these guys to show up and, everybody's busy, like I said, so I need to take advantage of these people when they're available, and I'm hoping that it'll be done next week.
Okay, and I agree with Kim. And at this point, let me just open it up to comments from the other commission members.
I have a question, Jeff.
Yep, go ahead,
It's
Melissa.
Melissa. I can't remember the details of the stormwater management plan and the final condition of that basin, that everything that you're saying is holding water. Is it supposed to be a detention basin or infiltration basin?
It's
Is
detention.
So it's not intended to infiltrate water, even in the final design?
No,
Okay.
no, it's all detention, and there's it's a spreader outlet, and there's also some 4-inch pipes that are proposed to, allow seepage of water through the spillway or through the spreader. But the soil conditions very, very limited as far as infiltration goes. So it's not designed in that fashion.
Okay.
Kind of interesting though, just beyond this, where we were pumping the water seemed to be disappearing quite easily. So I'm not sure whether or not the soil conditions are exclusive to this site only, or whether or not they improve as you go further down gradient, but that's been not my observation anyways, up to this point.
So are those pipes that are supposed to allow it to seep and empty not in place yet, or are they
No,
clogged?
they go on so the spreader is a series of concrete curbing, 16-inch concrete curbing that's sitting on what is considered to be the finished grade of the elevation of the basin. And the 4-inch pipes are at that elevation so that water will go through at the same elevation as what's on the other side of the spreader. I don't know if you have the detail of it, but
I think we gotta move
oh
on.
yeah, there it is right there. So you can see there's a concrete curbing in the middle, and then a riprap on either side, and then there's a 4-inch pipe at the elevation. And it's, this is only about a foot high, this little berm where this spreader is only about a foot high. And it's not, this location is not supposed to hold water, indefinitely. It's, seeping out the way it would normally go if they were naturally flowing. So We're in the process, of installing that. We have the curbing on site and we just need the water. I keep repeating myself. We just need to get rid of the water.
Well, hopefully Goddard can help you out with
Well-
coming up with some solutions. So keep
Well,
up
let me ask you,
for us.
can I ask you, Kim, you have the photograph of the sediment basin that we just set up that I sent in? Shows the location of the, where we want to pump to. It's within the limit of work. It was in one of those photographs that I sent you. I'm just hoping that that works where the water is allowed to. I don't think it's in that series. I think it's in the next, the one where we replaced the erosion control. Oh yeah, right. You can see it to the left. You got another photograph. Yeah, there it is right there. So we're intending to pump to that location and hope that it doesn't go back into the basin, detention basin. So that's within the limit of work. It's just outside the resource area.
Okay, I would just plan on, having a redundant solution set up in case that fills up and it does start running.
Oh, yeah.
into-
Yeah, well.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, I think we spent enough time on this. Are there any questions or comments from the public? All right, okay, thank you, Mr. Petruzzi, and we'll be
Okay.
talking with you in a few minutes about the amended NOIs.
Fabulous. Thank you.
You're
For the
welcome.
chair,
Yes, Kim, go ahead.
does the commission want to ratify my
Yes, we do.
enforcement order?
Can I get a motion to ratify the enforcement order that Kim put together for the Leonard Street site, please?
I'll make that motion.
And a second,
I'll second it.
and we'll do the roll call vote. Melissa,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Neen,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thank you, Kim. All right, Petrarca, 215 Winter Street. This is a continuation of a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family house. Mr. Bemis, are you on the call? Mr. Bemis?
Sorry, I slipped away for a moment and I didn't think you were gonna pull me up yet. So I apologize.
No problem. All right, would you like to give us an update as to where you're at?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And Kim, thank you for putting up the exhibit that I had sent you today. So I wasn't sure, having not prepared a plan for the commission recently, what you had sought for the typical PIB marker. This site has some extensive wetland areas where we're fairly close, but it made most sense to not be putting in sort of a rock, if you will, or a boulder or a fence, particularly where our driveway is located. But it was still best to have something that would identify the resource area, which is close, and to have that pattern continue to repeat through the site. So I have shown the marker. This is one that I believe Brian Gassett has used in the past, and Brian is likely to be the builder at this site. So I talked to him today, and I got that picture from him.
Okay, great. Yep, that works.
Yep, good. And so I'm identifying that I'm going to put that along the right side of the driveway and pretty much through the 100-foot buffer zone, which goes to the south, and then on the north side of the driveway as well. And then on the south end of the site, there's a resource area that actually extends onto the property. When we last presented the plan to you, we thought it was going to be off locus, but it turns out it's on locus. And if anyone should venture out there, do not get too close to wetland flag C6, because we've been stung so many times with these, it's hard to keep track. A fairly aggressive variety is out there, and best to just stay away at this point. But we will be putting the markers in there as well at the limit of work. that's identified on the plan. The plan includes a rain garden system to treat stormwater off of our driveway areas, and then our limit of work for the house. The house also has roof drains associated with it. We did soil testing to confirm that we could support that system. We have received approval from the Board of Health for the soil absorption system. And the other aspect of this that had still been a pending item from the last meeting was some discussion about the driveway itself. I did reach out to the fire department to find out what their minimum requirements were. Essentially, our driveway system does meet that minimum requirement. They seek to have a turnout area, which is shown around station 300 on the plan. There's a small area where 2 vehicles can pass. And then a turnaround area for them in the front of the house. Most of those other features are outside the buffer zone, but I just want you to understand how the system was developed. We're not trying to do more work than is necessary to bring it up to today's standards.
Okay.
And also at the last meeting, there was a retaining wall proposed along the driveway. We re-looked at that because I was concerned about the critters being able to kind of pass because there isn't a retaining wall there today. We did eliminate the wall, so that's gone. We do have to work right up to the edge of the resource area where we're doing the crossing itself in that zone. I do want to correct those culverts because they're not properly set. There's a slight impoundment being created. But
Yeah, I think-
otherwise, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Pardon me, Mr. Bemis. I think, did we talk at the last meeting about looking at increasing the size of the culverts potentially because of the perching of the culvert?
That
You
was
thought-
discussed. There's not a large watershed here, and there's 2 24-inch pipes. So I can attest to the fact that it's not necessary from a hydrologic perspective or hydraulic. But I think what it was is that they were installed probably without as much care as might be given, with today's construction. So it would just reset.
Yes, Matt, go ahead.
I think at the last meeting, we had discussed potentially enlarging them and then embedding them so they would have a natural substrate at their bottom. I think Mr. Bemis said he was going to investigate that, if I recall.
Right.
Yeah. I'm still open to that aspect of it. We didn't get our DEP file number as much as I tried. I'm not sure what's happening at Zero, so we're going to have to continue tonight anyways.
Yeah.
So maybe we leave that as the one open item, and I can review it with Matt in the next week or so that we could try to be ready for the next meeting to wrap this up.
Yep, and we have the alternatives analysis that hasn't been provided yet, correct?
Well, I'm going to prepare a letter basically outlining what I just stated to you about the fire department minimum requirements, because that's basically what we were addressing in the plan. So I think the other part of that would be paving versus non-paving, but we are treating the stormwater with this proposal. And I would just say that from a overall stormwater management, snow management, and then readily accessible site, we would want it paved. We would prefer not to be dealing with a gravel driveway that exists today.
Yeah.
And that much I would just stress is that I hate to be forced into I guess the only other alternative would be like a permeable pavement, but I think our rain garden is going to be far superior to permeable pavement personally.
Okay. And Kim was able to do a little bit of research on the site. And I think you're correct in that the culvert in the driveway was probably installed kind of haphazardly back in the day. This was in the 80s, so I imagine it was a previous owner. There is an enforcement order that's outstanding from
this project. Oh, all right.
Yeah, it's an old one. But the point is if you can take a look, and it's related to the driveway and the culvert construction. So I guess if you can take a look at, what improvements you can make to that culvert system, as Matt pointed out, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, no, I'll do that. I'll actually want to clear that up too, Kim. So good find on your part, and I'll put in a request to eliminate that because I don't want that sitting in the title as they go forward with this project.
Okay, we can provide you with the information if you need it. You can just reach out to Kim.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from commission members at this point?
I just have a quick
Oh, go ahead, you
Question.
first.
Okay. I think we talked about this last time, but I can't remember, and I don't know if it's part of the alternatives analysis. I don't really have a problem with the driveway, and I agree with the comment so far on the culvert, but the back of the property and that steep slope, that's within the 50 to 100 and the backyard there. I'm just wondering if through alternatives analysis, if there's any reduction that was considered there. It just seems like a pretty extensive backyard and a steep slope there, that during construction and whatnot could be a problem. It looks like it's wooded right now on that slope, and once those trees are cleared, I don't know if the final condition is just grass. It just makes me nervous.
And if I
Okay,
could
well,
just jump on, that's exactly where I was going, Melissa. It looks to me like it's wooded now. It looks like it's a gentler slope now. I'm finding it difficult to read the contour lines, but it looks like the proposal drops 20 feet in a 15 feet horizontal distance. And that strikes me as incredibly steep with no trees holding anything in place anymore. At minimum, I'd love to see a PIB moved up to the 100-foot. I'd love to see, if we are going to have a slope that steep, we have it vegetated, something to hold things in place and absorb water as it rushes down the hill a little better than it says now. Melissa, you were going exactly where I was.
I can say that the steepness isn't as great as it may appear scale-wise, but I will address that in the coming plan. And I will also identify that the fact that these existing soils here are a different soil class hydrologically, so they do have a better infiltrative characteristic than we've experienced on other projects. So with that said, I don't see it as challenging as a slope could be potentially, but I'll make sure we address that going forward. It's an important aspect of the site to be able to accommodate the house and pool, which are outside your buffer zone. But I do realize we're doing work in that 100-foot section to the 50-foot, and I will make sure we address it properly.
I'd like to just add on, if I could, Mr. Beams. I also get very, very worried about fertilizers rushing into the wetlands. And one of the reasons I would, if we have such a steep slope, that I would love it not to be lawn, is because no one is going to fertilize trees. And then we won't have nearly as much chemical fertilizer. Homes of this type, it seems to me, almost always have extensive lawn treatments that go with them, which includes, more often than not, chemical fertilizer, and that has me nervous as well.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind, and I'll make sure actually this slope, I would not want it to be a lawn, so I will reinforce that with the detail. Thank you.
Through the chair, related to that as well, why are the PIBs at the 50 and not at the 100 at the top of the slope?
I can do that, especially if we're going to put a vegetated slope there. Then we'll bring the markers up. I can do that.
Thanks,
It
Janine.
pays to be slow. This is Ed, and I'm just echoing primarily what Ted said, but also what Janine said. There's plenty of evidence around this town of the consequences of very green lawns and the consequences downstream.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead, Matt.
I guess just in thinking about that slope, I don't know if Mr. Bemis would consider, I mean, there's already a retaining wall proposed at the bottom of the slope. If you were to remove that retaining wall up the slope, presumably you could lessen or maybe eliminate some of the grading to preserve more of the forest area in there and have that retaining wall up closer to the rest of the development.
I'll be happy to look at that as well. Thank you, Matt.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public at this point? All right, so our next meeting, Mr. Bemis, is the 28th of September. Would you like to continue out to that date?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, great. And if you can just send Kim a email formally requesting that, that would be fantastic. All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, Mr. Petrosi, we have lots 1A, 2A, and 3A at Leonard Street. This is a continuation of an amended notice of intent for 3 single-family homes. All right. And it's HCC file numbers 35, 36, and 37. So before we jump into the applications, I wanted to address the project finances as our first order of business on this one. So we have some consulting fees that are in arrears in the amount of, Kim was kind enough to put a fairly lengthy summary together for us. Kim, can you just refresh my mind? What was the amount? 3,000? No, it was
Yep, That's $1,020.
$1,020.
Yep.
That's in arrears. So can we expect that that's going to get paid, Mr. Petrosi?
Sure, I have no problems paying for any deficit that's been expended by the town. It's the first time I'm becoming aware of it. All I see is the money going out from my pocket. I don't see where it's being spent, so, but I certainly can provide a check for the deficiency that's that I see here on the screen.
Okay, that would be great. And what we would also like to request, so there's 2 kind of levels of review at the site, right? There's Beta's review. They review the engineering, design, the culvert installation, and some of the site infrastructure work, on behalf of the commission and the planning board. And then we have Lucas Environmental, who, thank you, Kim. She has an outline there. Then we have kind of a second level of review through Lucas that addresses kind of the wetland and resource area related issues to make sure that the erosion controls are in place, that you're complying with the order of conditions and with the SWIP, which has been a challenge, as of late. So just so you kind of understand that this, those are the 2 separate kind of levels of review. That's why we have 2 consultants. So, going forward, we're going to be, Matt has to go out to the site on a bi-weekly basis to inspect it. So to cover his expense for consulting fees, we estimate that that's going to be $3,800. So we're requesting that that be submitted to the commission too, to cover Lucas's site review and site inspections as we move forward with the project.
Well, it's not about the money per se, it's about what is going to be, what the necessary inspections are, as you've been saying for so many months now that the site has not been active, and yet we have all this money going out for inspections on stuff that's nothing's happening on the site. So again, I don't have any problems compensating or providing funds for the inspections on the site, but as you can read, if you read the memo from Kim regarding Beta, I mean, Beta's spent $8,000 or $5,000 on doing inspections because they didn't even know what they were inspecting.
Well, I think,
So I feel like I'm being, I don't know, everybody's in the same boat. We want to make sure that the project goes smoothly in accordance with the conditions, but yet, there's a
but yet it's not, right?
But
It hasn't been in
but it's not,
compliance.
and the inspections are not going according to plan either, because we asked Beta to come out and look at a detention basin, and he's looking at something completely different because that's what he was told. So, and they don't give me a rebate. They don't say, "Oh, it's our mistake. We're sorry. We shouldn't have done that." So.
But we have worked with you to minimize the fees that you're incurring.
Absolutely. I don't, listen, like I said, I don't necessarily have any problems with paying. We've been paying substantial amounts of money all along. So that's not it. I just want the inspections to be productive and not routine, such that, that just because the money is there. So.
Well, they are biweekly inspections that,
Right, and I appreciate
they were weekly. We decreased it to biweekly.
and I appreciate that. Believe me, I do.
Okay, so the $3,800 is okay then?
So,
With
so I will break into my piggy bank and bring you the 3,800 in addition to the 1,020.
Thank you. Okay. And when can we expect that? The next week or two?
Well, I think by Monday, Tuesday. I don't know. It's kind of tough this week, but I'll be up. And we'll drop the checks off.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mr. Harrow.
So if the checks don't appear, what's the consequence? Or until the checks finally appear, what's the consequence?
Well, we still have open orders of conditions, so I think Mr. Petrosi had told us that he's gonna provide them to the commission in the next week or two, so I'm gonna take his word for it and assume that we will be in receipt of those in short order.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so in terms of the amended, Kim, am I missing anything, or can we move on to discuss the applications?
I think you got it. We're good.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so do you want to give us an update on the amended orders?
Sure. Essentially, we've proposed to amend the orders to provide a gravity sewer system for all 3 houses that are proposed. Originally, the grading was, the houses were to be built with these walkout basements that would be walking out onto existing grade. Given our experiences on the site and the ability to service the homes with gravity sewer, we determined that it might be better to fill the backyards as opposed to leaving them in a walkout basement condition or on existing grade. So essentially all that we're doing is from the backs of the houses out to the property line, we're regrading that at an elevation that allows for the sewer line to be installed and accommodate a gravity sewer feed out to Pleasant Street. And in addition to that, we're also proposing to install stormwater recharge to the best that it would facilitate the roof runoff from the existing rear yard, which was not part of the original proposal. So, and the only other addition to this request is that we have to run utilities in via some above ground utilities via telephone poles that have been proposed on the site, one on the lot line between 1A and 2A, and then one just a little bit outside of the head wall. That's where the culvert is. And these locations they're not fixed in stone, but they're in the vicinity of where the utility company has told us they can get to. And,
Okay.
we did just, and then there's a pole that at the beginning of the driveways between lot 2A and 3A, the pole ended up being right in the middle of the two driveways and didn't allow for turning radiuses for emergency vehicles. So we did have to move that pole, or we installed a new pole, and that pole will be removed. And that's pretty much the request that's included in the modification. It really is converting the houses from a walkout basement scenario to a full basement with gravity sewer.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And I think the DPW endorsed the gravity drain versus the what you had previously proposed is my recollection.
And Beta did report that we were in compliance with all the requirements of stormwater management. So nothing has changed per se, other than there's a little bit more fill in the back of these houses than what was originally proposed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Matt, did you have any comments?
Through the chair.
Yep. Go ahead, Kim.
The check that Mr. Petrozzi, excuse me, is planning to submit for includes the funds for Matt to be able to review this.
Got it. Got it. So he hasn't done any review.
Or hasn't reviewed it?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. So when we get the check, we'll have Matt review it. Until then, I think we have to continue this out to our next meeting, which is the 28th.
Through the chair, can I ask a question before we?
Yeah, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Any comments from commission members? Go ahead, Ted.
Sure. Mr. Petrozzi, I'm sorry to ask you to repeat a part, but when you were talking about the utilities at the end, could you explain, not necessarily in more detail and maybe less detail, what you're doing again with the utilities with the proposed amendment?
So
electrical.
The electrical. So let's start with the electrical. So along Leonard Street, you'll see the homes on Leonard Street are serviced by above ground utility poles.
Yeah.
So when we put the driveways in for lot 2A and 3A, the pole that was existing there is right dead center in the middle of those two driveways.
Yep, I can picture it.
Which from a public safety standpoint we proposed the turnaround there, so the emergency vehicles would have the ability to turn around. The pole in the middle of those two driveways defeats that purpose.
Yeah.
So we have to move that. We have to provide another pole. So we have another pole that was installed. And we also, to allow for the distance between poles, we also had to move another pole that was in front of 5 Leonard Street. We had to shift that pole to the same side of the street and move it down 50 feet so that the distance between the poles was remaining consistent.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off just to try to save time for all of us. I thought I heard you say something about burying the electrical close to the houses.
Well, when we get through to the poles, we're going to put 2 poles on the interior of the site. Then we will go underground from those 2 poles to the houses.
Along the lot lines, was your thought?
Correct. Well, yes, they go, angled out to the houses, yes.
So then my question specifically is, are you going underground through the wetland or will that
No,
be?
no. If you can see, I don't know if you can blow that up, Kim, at all, but we have a proposed pole that's right outside of the limit of work, on lot 2A, right? Where we have the road right up a little bit further, further to the right, Kim, right there. Anyway,
I see it.
it's not in the wetlands, and we're avoiding going through the wetlands with the poles.
Okay, so there won't be any poles or wires through the wetlands.
No.
Okay, great. I'm sorry to make you repeat as much as I did, but I wanted to make sure I heard the underground part.
No problem.
Okay, any other comments from commission members? Comments from the public?
Wow.
Okay, well, sorry, did someone have a comment? No? Okay, we'll continue this out to the 28th. Mr. Petruzzi, if you can just please send Kim an email stating that request, that would be great.
Sure. And then just to make sure we're on the same page, we are allowed to continue work to put this culvert in the ground. Am I hearing that correctly, Kim?
You are hearing that correctly, so long as the work is completed in compliance with the order and the SWIP for your site.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Petruzzi.
I'll report back at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Ravenwood LLC, 0 Hayden Rose Street. This is a continuation of a notice of intent for a subdivision. We have Mr. Goddard.
Scott Goddard here from Goddard Consulting. Also on with me is Ron Nation, who's the applicant, and Joe Marquardont, who is the civil engineer. Since the last meeting, Joe has submitted a revised set of plans along with a letter summarizing the plan changes and as they relate to the last Lucas letter. We did get notice that from Kimberly that Matt may not have had an opportunity to kind of go through these plan changes. But with respect to that, if it's okay with the board, we would appreciate the opportunity to maybe present to you for discussion purposes the changes that have been made to the plan. And hopefully that can at least make Matt's review easier and see if any discussion comes as a result of the plan changes. So if it's okay with the chairman and the board, I'd turn it to Joe to discuss the plan modifications.
That would be great. Thank you.
Evening all. To the chair, do you prefer me to, pick the high points of the changes, or would you like to travel item by item from my response letter?
I think the high points would be adequate unless
Okay.
there's a disagreement from Kim or the other commission members. Okay, high points, please.
Okay, sure. I guess one of the larger items was a relocation of the proposed lands replication area. As you may recall, we were crossing a small portion of the BVW with our proposed roadway. And we had shown originally a location very near that crossing to be in the same reach of the wetlands. The feedback from the commission seemed to be the loss of trees inside that wooded area would be detrimental to the interests of the bylaw and the act. So we have relocated the replication area to that area that Kim is circling there in the field near Hayden Row on the easterly side of that wetlands edge. Reduces our site work, so it helps us. There is no tree clearing related to that. That is the grass field. We've attempted to set it about the elevation of the existing area, the existing wetlands, 386.5, then grade back up. There is a generic detail for the replication area. Based on Matt's review, we may need to add a bit to that, but generally that's the location that we're talking about 200 feet westerly of what we had originally proposed. Another area that we gave a lot of review to was the tension basin number 23 inside the riverfront area at the back of, I guess, lots 6 through 9. We heard from the commission that if there was some way that we could reconfigure our basin and reduce our riverfront impacts, that would be something that we should pursue. We made that change. We have shifted a portion of that basin more westerly. We have dropped our impacts to the riverfront area by about 12%. The location it is, you see there. We went directly west. The reasons for that location I enumerated last time. It's flatter than some of the other spots we considered, better for storage than say some of the steeper spots. We can achieve the goals of retaining, detaining, infiltrating stormwater with less tree clearing. It's a more efficient location than some of the other spots we considered. And I think we have shown a real change to the plans, to the location, to balance that concern that the applicant has about proximity to the homes and still reducing our impact inside that riverfront area. We feel that the grassed forebay and infiltration basin with the pollinators that the trees and shrubs we proposed around the outside is preferable to the alternative pools, hardscapes, the backyards of the homes that turn from lawn to something more permanent. Another major item in there was talk about a phasing plan. As we've maintained with the planning board, and it's something that this, I'm sure, is not news to the commission members. When we introduced the open space bylaw 25 years ago, the idea was to cluster the development, maintain areas outside the perimeter of the property as natural green space. So we feel, given the condensed nature of the development, that we only need one phase. We are aware that we have some marginal soils. There will be some concerns about how much land that we open up at one time. So we punched up the construction sequencing on the plans, put some milestone dates in there so that the commission can wrap their minds around what will be happening when. And we will limit the site alteration to what can be done in one construction season. We may cut the trees, but we won't grub and stump the entire site. We'll just grub and stump what we can build that year in that one construction season. So I think we'll achieve the goals outlined, or what I heard anyway at the last hearing about putting too much of the site in play. I think we can that latest proposal can address some of those concerns. Those were the major high points. The rest of the stuff was just kind of an update. Beta has reviewed on behalf of the planning board, has reviewed our stormwater design. We are proposing Cape Cod berms throughout the site, not just at the area of the crossing. We've updated the erosion control construction details so folks can wrap their brains around what should actually be put in. All the plans are stamped and sealed. We've tried to clarify the plans, made some changes to our drafting techniques, make them a little easier to read. And how far you want to go into the weeds on some of this stuff, but they're all in that letter, that response letter from September 7th. I'd be happy to go into anything in greater detail if you wish.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Scott. One last item on top of what Joe said is that we have submitted since the last meeting 3 of the individual lot NOIs. So those are scheduled for the following hearing, I believe. And the other ones will be forthcoming shortly as well. so that the commission will be able to hear the individual lots and the broader open space subdivision, sort of at the same time.
Great, thank you. Thank you for submitting the revised plans too, so they're a little bit easier for us to read. We appreciate that. Okay, I don't have any questions. Are there questions, comments from commission members?
I have a question. I don't know if this is the right meeting for this discussion, but you can squelch me if it's the wrong one. I don't see on the new plans, and maybe this was an effort to make the plans more readable, the limit of work around the lots and where the yards stop on the lots. And the reason I ask is I see that many of the homes abut the 100-foot buffer. I'm assuming the proposal is then to have yard beyond the 100-foot buffer. And I fear that the commission, in allowing development like that between Chamberlain and Wayland, has somehow sent the message that that's okay. And I don't think I'm comfortable with that becoming the new norm, that as long as the building is out of the 100-foot buffer, then you can extend development beyond that. I am not comfortable with that. So if that's part of the proposal, I'll be giving pushback to that.
Yeah, we'll evaluate that as part of the individual NOIs being submitted for the homes. Ted?
I thought so. I wanted to throw it out because maybe there's a rethinking of the bigger plan before we get to that, if that's possible.
Okay, no, appreciate it. Other comments from commission members? Other comments from the public?
The chair,
Yes, Kim.
I just wanted to clarify, I received some of the lots for the subdivision, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, the applications were missing some of the signatures, so they missed the deadline for the meeting on the 28th, but we can hear them on October 19th if the applicant will give us permission to waive that 21-day hearing requirement. So I've put in a request to them to consider that.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Yeah, so if we have to waive that 21 days, that's fine. And that'll give us adequate time too to get all the other ones filed at the same time, and you'll just end up hearing probably all the lots at the same time.
Okay. All right, so we'll continue this out to the 28th. If you can just send Kim an email, Mr. Goddard, that would be great.
Yep, sure thing. And if your agent intends to get us revised any comments on this, the sooner the better, so that you can give us a chance to incorporate that into anything else before the 28th.
Okay, yep. We'll work to get it to you as soon as feasible. All right, thank you for the update.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, thanks. Okay, moving along on our work session items, REC Hopkinton, Wayland Chamberlain subdivision, some violation discussion. Do we have someone on the call for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting is here on behalf of the applicant. Kathy is also on the call to discuss this letter. I think is this the okay, this is the right one. So thank you so much, Kim, for putting this up. So Kim, do you want to walk through the violation letter, or do you want me to, and discuss the current site status?
Sure, I'm happy to walk through the letter and hit the highlights. So to the commission, I was able to make some time to go out to the site and take a walk. I think it was the day of or the day after we had the remnants of Hurricane Ida. And I found a few things that were a little bit concerning to me that I felt, were constituted a violation of the order. The first was dewatering. A hose that I noticed was dewatering a sediment forebay, kind of the top portion of it. And the end of the hose was placed in an area on one of the lots within the 0 to 50 foot vegetated buffer area, which was outside of the limit of work. The end of the hose had a dirt bag around it, and there was no evidence of erosion or siltation, but it was something that I felt like, you know, the applicant should be mindful of where they're dewatering and staying within the limit of work. The second thing that I noticed was that many of the sediment and stormwater BMPs had that visual turbid, fine suspended sediment in the water. And because of the high volume of water that we received after that storm, the outlet was becoming overwhelmed and then overtopping silt fence, and that kind of muddy sediment laden water was washing to the area beyond the limit of work. And then finally, I did observe an area, I noted it in my letter as pipe FESO1, where kind of a slope had blown out, and that slope blowout created some visual sedimentation that overtopped some silt fence. It seemed to me like a lot of area at the site was not stabilized, and that could be improved on. There was definitely substantial erosion and sedimentation controls in place that were working, and that the contractor had definitely made an effort to prepare for the storm. I was impressed with the area around the stream crossing was running clear, and it looked like there are a lot of active erosion controls being maintained in that area to keep it clear. So a little bit of positive, a little bit of negative. I just wanted to kind of check in with the applicant and see if we couldn't encourage them to tighten up the site a little bit.
So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Kim's summary, and it definitely summarizes a lot of things that we saw when we were out on site. We've been actively on the site for a long time, doing during storm inspections and after storm inspections. So this dewatering setup that's unpictured now. So that was definitely an oversight by the contractor. That should not have been there. I didn't see it during my inspections. Otherwise, I would have had it pulled from the woods. So I'm glad that Kim was able to note that there was no erosion or sedimentation there. So that dewatering setup has now been removed. It is now placed in an area that is outside the buffer zone, south of basin number 7. So we have an area that's about 75 feet within the interior limit of work that has stump grindings and vegetation that the watering runs through before it even gets to our erosion control setup. So, and the goal of that setup, actually, Kim, if you stop on that last photo, sorry, go back, right there. So in the rear of the, oh, no, forward, one more, stop, up, no, next photo. I think it is the next photo, Kim. It should be the back, it should be showing the back of the basin. I'm sorry. There was one that showed the whole basin area.
Yeah, we just went by it, I think.
I mean, this photo, right? No, that's the wrong angle. It's the other angle that I'm looking for. It's looking to. Oh, there we go. No.
All right. Well,
anyway, so
give us a narrative.
Dewatering is now occurring within the limit of work. It's got about 75 feet of stabilized mulch stump grindings that has to run through, plus vegetation on site before it actually gets to the erosion control line. And that dewatering is only occurring several days after our storm to dewater that temporary basin number 3, which we've kept in place this whole time to help basin number 7 get established. And as you can see in this photo here, basin 7 was constructed several weeks ago. It was hydro-seeded appropriately, and we've just been dealing with trying to get seed to grow between the storms, which has been very challenging this year. But Comley has been very active in seeding, and you can see even the upgradient slopes in this photo here. They've seeded everything out as they walk themselves out of the site, and they left stump grinding berms in place again to help stabilize those areas. So that was the dewatering issue. So the issue with the basins discharging sediment. So we did submit a report for our inspection on September 10th. We reviewed all the discharge points. We found only film, if any, sediment at any of the discharge points that occurred. We've been actively trying to get these basins seeded as best as possible interior. Right now, all the basins are seeded. They got the last basin number 2 was seeded before this last storm. They reseeded basin 1, and they're actively working to reseed areas in the next few weeks as we're in the fall growing season. We're hoping that we get a lull in some of this heavy rain, which has been washing out the seed that they keep putting down. The largest issue that we identified, that Kim also identified, which was in that last photo, Kim, that you just pulled up with the stump grindings, is we did have a blowout where we had a temporary culvert capturing stormwater off the Wayland approach to the stream crossing. And we put that in to make sure that as water came down the road towards the culvert, it didn't go into the stream and overwhelm the stream controls, which are already there. So we put that in. We had a large stump berm here, and you can see here it was over 2 feet tall. And as the water came down, it decided to do two things. It took a corner to the left, which is straight in this photo here. You can see it went into the erosion controls and kind of tucked in around it, which protected a lot of the area by keeping the sediment and mulch in there. And then some of it did go straight to your right in this photo into the buffer zone area. And some of it might have gotten into the wetlands. It's a tight wetland line there, but that area right there you go, Kim, that's the photo. So that area was there where we did notice that there was sediment and stump grindings in there. The good thing is it's the stump grindings captured a lot of that sediment right there. And we hand removed all that yesterday under my supervision. Underneath that, you have a really good sweet pepper bush shrub root system. So that area should recover pretty quickly. I don't have a photo of that handy because I forgot to take one after the work. I had a colleague go there today to take it. But that area did get cleaned up and removed. So we do understand there were some silty discharges. The basins have all been seeded and honest, and we've been stabilizing the roadways with check dams. Periodically, we have stump grinding check dams in areas that are just disturbed. They've been actively hydroseeding as they work their basins out. As you can see in the photos here, there's lots of active hydroseeding that's been occurring in these areas. That's basin 2 that Kimberly's showing. So they got that seeded just before this last storm. And thankfully it wasn't as bad. So the seed I think is gonna come in pretty well because it didn't wash out as much as it has in the previous storms. But the contractor has been very active at getting these areas loamed and stabilized. These areas used to be disturbed completely, and now we've got them stabilized, loam, and the system's actually up and running. So that's kind of the current status. We are actively working to get the roadways paved and curbed, which will really get this water really clean, because now we'll have really clean water coming in and it doesn't have to filter through the stone check dams on the roadways right now. So this is the other section. I think, Kim, you can go back to that last photo there. This was the one section here. It was the big photo that you had. But anyway, there was the small knockover on east of basin number 2. That has all been repaired. Commonly's been very good. They've been repairing silt fence within the 2 days of me asking them to fix it. They're actually usually out there the day after, walking it themselves and fixing things and repairing stakes as they go. So this area has been fixed and addressed. We're also working with them to flush out the riprap to help get some of the sediment that's trapped in the riprap out, so that way in future discharges it stays clean.
Okay, I think we got it. So we appreciate you addressing the deficiencies that Kim noted. And we're just asking you to use Kim's words, just be vigilant going forward, make sure you're keeping an eye on things. And, it's been a tough summer, I know, for a lot of projects in town. So we understand. But again, just please make sure you just stay on top of things and be vigilant.
Understood. And we're definitely, the applicant's been very, very good at listening to my recommendations. I appreciate their responses, and also the contractor. They've been very, very good at listening to what I've said and asked for. And that's been great to have on this team.
So, all right, Mr. Arnold, are there any questions from commission members? Okay, thank you, Mr. Arnold. We appreciate the update.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Okay. Egbuna 3 Sadie Lane. This is a tree removal request. Do we have the applicant on the call?
I think I forgot to send him a reminder, in all honesty.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just have him come at the next meeting, Kim.
Yeah, I know that I had sent him that I would schedule him, but I didn't give him the homeowner reminder
All right.
courtesy. Yeah, I
No
can do
worries.
that. I can push him.
Okay. No problem. Okay, in-person versus remote meetings for the fall. So what are folks' thoughts on this?
I'm in favor, especially because I have a certificate to deliver to someone on the commission.
Anna, do we have an update on where we might have the meetings if we were to go live?
We were told that the senior center would be available. I did call today and they said that as of today, masks are not mandatory. But you know, everything's changing daily, so.
Right.
This is a meeting room in the library, a potential site.
I think the senior center works out well, you know, if we're able to do that, which it sounds like it is. I'm just looking at the schedule. I mean, we have one more meeting in September, one in October. You know, that's almost 2 months between now and our November meetings. So maybe in October at that meeting, we see what the kind of conditions are and make a decision. I don't know. Does that make sense, Kim, Anna?
I'm Sweden.
So the only
Commission's prerogative.
Yeah, the only comments I have is that for newspaper advertising, we have certain deadlines that would have to word our advertising as either remote or in person. So that's why, like right now, we're booked remote for the next meeting, but we had to discuss it today because if you wait till the 28th, I'd have to book new hearings for the 19th as an either or.
Yeah.
So we do, you know, we have a little bit of lead time for that. So just to help kind of applicants of, we might be remote, we might be in person. So that's why I just asked you to consider a couple weeks in advance.
Okay.
But right now we are only booked remote through September 28th. So we'd be looking at what you guys want to do October, November, December at this point. If it helps at all, the planning board has decided to stay remote through the end of December, but obviously that is completely up to you guys, how you feel you want to proceed.
Yeah, go ahead,
Through the
Ted.
Chair, the open space is meeting both such that we meet in person, but people can zoom in.
Oh, that sounds cumbersome.
Yeah, the hybrid, I don't like that. It's too complicated. It's complicated enough trying to do the remote alone, never mind doing remote and in-person hybrid.
I spent a year of teaching hybrid. It's not pretty.
All right, I'm not Sweden after all. I too am not in favor of a hybrid model. I think it would definitely be a challenge for me to run it and also participate with some kind of intelligence and good feedback.
Right. Yeah.
So Jeff, my thoughts are, for whatever they're worth, the New York Times says cases are still rising in Massachusetts right now. I'm fully vaccinated, and as soon as I can get a booster, I'll jump on that. But I don't like the idea of us going indoors again when cases are rising. I mentioned last time, I would love for us to find a way to be a little more spread out in a meeting. And if we don't have that sorted out, I'm also thinking this remote is not fun, but it sure feels safe. And I'd prefer to hold on to safe for a little while longer so we can work out some other things.
Yeah, I was going to propose that we keep it remote for the foreseeable future, and then maybe talk about it again, you know, in November at one of the meetings in November, and kind of reassess at that point.
I'm completely in alignment with that.
Yeah, I agree based on where the numbers are going. You know, with increasing numbers, it's not really the time to go live.
Yep, I agree. Is everyone good with that? Everyone else? Okay. All right. So, hey, Anna, did you talk to Kim about the booth that we set up at the Poly Arts Festival next weekend? And where she can find the Sally the Salamander suit?
I don't think I have clued her in on
Kim,
you're gonna love it.
Anna forgot to tell you. we have a couple events in town during the year. You know, Poly Arts is one of them. We have an Earth Day at the Common. And it was, Don would usually dress up in the Sally the Salamander suit
No, he didn't.
and go out to, we had a little booth set up and he would say hi to all the kids and, you know, so we were hoping that you were gonna follow through on that tradition.
That was part of the interview, I heard.
I think it was. Wasn't that mentioned?
How does
Well,
one walk in a salamander costume? Is it like a slither? What is it?
It's like that Geico lizard, you know?
I think, Kim, this should be on April Fool's Day, but I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing any salamanders.
All right, well, you can breathe a sigh of relief. We're just pulling your leg, so.
See, I was game. I was like, well,
I don't know if Don ever watched that thing in his 20 plus years either.
don't worry, I'm already wearing his construction vest. So
All right, Kim, anything else, or are we good?
I think we're good.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ed, go ahead.
So I think I sent a little note about this. As you know, I've had some painful invasive plant experience, and I'm just seeing all over town at the moment Japanese knotweed galore, besides bittersweet and some barberry. And I'm wondering if somehow the Concom could figure out some way to figure out what to do about this. There's a huge stand of Japanese knotweed between the lumber store and the respite center.
Yeah.
There's bunches of it on Lumber Street, on Spring Street, on Wood Street. And it seems that if we just sit back, it's going to take over.
Yeah, I did, you know, I have a couple emails that you sent, Ed, that I haven't responded to yet, just because I've been kind of backlogged with stuff. I mean, why don't we give it some thought? You know, my initial kind of reaction is like, I know Kim doesn't have the bandwidth. I don't want to speak for her. She can, you know, I mean, I think there's just too much going on to try to take that on. Number one, you know, number two, unless it's in our jurisdiction, you know, we really don't have any kind of, you know, authority to do anything. You know, my kind of preliminary thoughts were it might be like a citizens group that someone could organize. Because, you know, the other thing is the funding for eliminating it, right? Or getting people to volunteer to go in and do it. And I don't know. I can tell you, I don't have the time to do it with any kind of, you know, quality effort.
Well, I get it. It is a huge problem that's outside any of our sorts of corrals to deal with. I don't know what to do about it. So basically, I guess if somebody has some great ideas, you know, we can talk about it. We can think about it individually, and maybe since this is outside of Concom, we can chat about it from one to the other. I don't know, but
Yeah, why don't we all give it some thought, and, you know, we can talk about it at another meeting. But I wasn't ignoring you, Ed. I did get your emails. I just haven't had time to get back to you yet. So
it's
I
okay, Jeff.
apologize.
Everybody else ignored it.
I apologize.
Jeff, could I just take a moment to ask Matt a question that maybe others are wondering as well?
Sure.
Matt, I'm curious if there's a reassessment going on about what a 100-year storm is. We often talk about 100-year storms and that people have to be prepared for 100. I feel like we had 3 100-year storms this summer. Are there discussions in your world or in the governmental world about reassessing 100-year storms?
Certainly there's, and this is not my expertise, more of an engineering question. So I don't even know if any of the engineers at the meeting might be able to chime in better than I. I know the number, the size of the storm, Again, I don't recall the terminology off the top of my head, but it has increased as far as design calculations, although I don't think DEP has formally required that yet. But a lot of towns are adopting that. But I think, yeah, I think I don't know how much actively is going on, but it certainly seems inevitable because it doesn't really, it doesn't mean anything anymore, when we see the sizes of the storms that we're having. And unfortunately, it may be, it's going to be, when we start seeing these large basins that were supposedly designed for these large storms failing, that's when it's going to get the attention of people. It seems like we don't really respond to these things proactively all that well. So
yeah, I can chime in. So I've been participating in an advisory committee with Mass DP through the Central Massachusetts Regional Stormwater Coalition, of which Hopkinton is actually a member. So we were invited to participate. So they've been for the last year having this group come together to look for updates to the Mass DP stormwater standards. And one of the big ones is precipitation data. So they definitely are looking to adopt so right now the stormwater standards require TB40, which is outdated. And they have planned to adopt NOAA 14, which is part of our bylaws, which is more, it has more modern data. What they're struggling with right now, and they have to come up with, is that because Massachusetts is doing so much work with climate resiliency, they are trying to create a new standard that looks at, the most recent data and climate resiliency. So they're calling it like NOAA Plus or something like that. And they haven't figured out what that safety factor is going to be yet. They've been talking about, Mass DP's been talking about putting out a draft update all summer, and they haven't. And then there'll be a public notice period for all of us. So, it's just been taking a really long time because unfortunately the state design standards are not as restrictive or as stringent as the federal standards are. And so there's like the discrepancy that's causing some heartache, but they're working on it.
And just to close the loop on that, I actually had a conversation with John Geltrich today, the planner, because we've been having conversations this summer about, all the big storms and the failing stormwater, and is there anything that we can do on a town level? And he is thinking about proposing to the planning board to think about adopting that NOAA plus standard in the Hopkinton stormwater bylaw, which would give us that kind of extra rainfall data that accounts for climate resiliency. There are situations in which, and I haven't quite gotten to the bottom of this yet, but there are situations in which Concom jurisdiction applies, but the stormwater bylaw does not, in which case we'd be looking to DEP to update their precipitation data because we'd only be able to regulate under the mass stormwater standards. So we're also looking at kind of, do we need to think about closing that gap and where is that gap? And so those are kind of the conversations that we're having at town hall as well, thinking about this moving forward.
Thank you. Thanks all of you.
So we'll wait for the update. But I think, Gary, you're right. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon, right? We shouldn't hold our breath for it in terms of the DEP and, approving it, but okay. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
And we'll do the roll call. Melissa?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. All right, everyone. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone. We'll see you.